Well, good morning and welcome to a special edition of Litter Media Live. This is the focus on Fairfield County, and we have one of the fellas who doesn't live in Fairfield County, but sometimes you probably felt as though you do live in Fairfield County. Speaking with Tom Wilson, he is a sports writer with the Lancaster Eagle-Gazette. We'll hear what he has to share with us in just a moment. But first, these words from our friends at Classic Brands.
Introducing Budweiser Zero. 0% alcohol, 0 grams of sugar, full Budweiser flavor. For all the moments you want a beer and need to stay on your game. Budweiser Zero, 0 compromise.
Mike Smith and Dan Ramey, we have bumped into Tom Wilson I don't know how many times during our broadcasting careers and covering sports, but most recently I've seen you at a lot of Fairfield Union games.
Absolutely. They made a wonderful tournament run and got to the Elite Eight for the first time in school history. And I've been doing this a long time, so anytime a team gets on a tournament run, it's just neat to see the community get behind them. And so, yeah, I have ran into you guys quite a bit here this basketball season.
I just happen to notice Mike and I are wearing Lancaster Golden Gale colors
right
now. So it's suitable.
Mostly when I ran into Tom, it was, will you get out of my way? I'm trying to work here.
No, you guys do a wonderful job. So.
Well, and Tom even asked me at the first Fairfield Union game I went to, so are you horning in on my territory?
Exactly. I'm like, where are these guys coming from all of a sudden?
But I will tell you that over the years, and a lot of what we have done, what you have done, depends a lot on the cooperation of the coaches and the administrators. We've got some great people that we get a chance to come in contact with.
Absolutely. And the neat thing is they really appreciate it. I mean, I hear from athletic directors and coaches, and we all want the same thing. We're trying to publicize the kids and make them feel good about themselves. But, yeah, we do get to work with a lot of great people.
Yeah.
Before coming on board, we were getting a little background information before going on the air. Before going to the Eagle-Gazette in Lancaster, you had some other ties, including not too far from Chillicothe.
Correct. I got my first start at my hometown newspaper in Washington Courthouse, the Record Herald. I was there for about a year, and then moved on to Mount Vernon as a sports writer, and then became a sports editor all through the 90s. And then, like I told you guys, I got out of the business a little bit for a couple of years and worked for the Better Business Bureau, and then worked for the Newark Advocate for 6.5 years, and then they're transferred to our sister paper, the Lancaster Eagle-Gazette, and this August will be my 10-year anniversary, which is hard to believe how quick time flies by. But, yeah, this is actually my 30th year of covering high school sports. So once the spring season ends, I'll complete 30 years, which is unbelievable to me. But it's been obviously a lot of fun, or I wouldn't have done it for this long. So
yeah, your wife puts up with that because you're having fun.
Oh, yeah. I think it's probably why we get along, because I'm kind of gone, in the evenings, and then like this week, all of a sudden I'm home all week, and it's kind of like, what are you doing? But no, she's very supportive, and I appreciate that. So
yeah, one of the things that you talk about being in this business this long, I think that's the passion that we have. We don't do it really for the money, do we? Because it's just not there.
Absolutely not. And I always tell people, if you have a job where it doesn't seem like work, then that's something. So even now, I never go to a game thinking, oh, I got to go cover this game. I mean, if I ever get to that point, it's probably time to hang it up. But yeah, you definitely have to have a passion and love what you do, and I definitely do. So
yeah. Mike and I both had a chance to cover state champions. You've done that, I'm sure, as well. When you look back on your writing career, what stands out to you most? Is it those championship games, or is it some other stories that maybe people don't realize but you had a connection to?
Yeah, I think obviously whenever you cover a team that wins a state championship, those are far and few between. But I'll be honest, man, I've gotten to meet a lot of great people. So I guess for me, it's just the relationships that I've been able to form through the years. I mean, I still have ties to Mount Vernon, to Washington Courthouse, to Lancaster, to Newark. So obviously, to me, that's just icing on the cake when you get to cover a team that's really successful and goes far in the tournament. But just the relationships I've formed with coaches and players and athletic directors, that's kind of what will stick out in my mind.
Of course, before you came on board with the Lancaster Eagle-Gazette, there were a lot of great athletes that were in the Lancaster, Fairfield County area for many years. The younger generation remembers Bobby Carpenter, but his dad, Rob, who was the longtime football coach at Lancaster, he had a pro career.
Absolutely, he played 10 years in the NFL, and he was. I really have a great relationship with him. We really became close, and he was telling me how he could have stayed in Houston, but he wanted to come back to Lancaster and raise his family. And even when Bill Parcells was the coach at the Giants, he asked him to come and coach there, and he turned him down. And but yeah, Coach Carpenter is awesome. He was awesome to work with, and I miss him. I mean, I would make a point to go out to practice 2 or 3 times a week just so we sat over there and talk, because he got to the point where he kind of let his coaches coach, and he just kind of sat over on the golf cart. But he told me a ton of stories, which could be on the record or off the record. Some of them could be, and some of them not. But yeah, I think people do forget that. I mean, he had a 10-year NFL career as a running back. I mean, which is a big deal.
Did Rex Kern ever come back to visit with you while you were there?
He did. A couple years ago, he came back because he wrote a book. And he's another guy who I think I didn't realize he was such a great athlete. I mean, he was a 3-sport All-Ohio guy in football, basketball, and baseball. And I'd never really talked to Rex until he came back. And he actually called me after he came back and for that book signing. He actually called me. I wrote a column last summer and just commended me on the column and stuff, and so that was really nice for him to do that. So
it's a real personal guy.
Yes,
I finally met him. He spoke at my sister's graduation in 1971, and finally had the opportunity to meet him. And when I did the interview, I said, you spoke at Taze Valley, and he says, do you remember what I said? I said, well, I don't know. I was 8 years old, so I can't remember everything that you said at that point. But he was speaking here to the Ross County Alumni Association for Ohio State, and it was very unique to hear the stories he had to share. But he had a great connection with everyone that was there. Living in Colorado now, I believe.
Correct. Yeah, I think his son lives there, so that's why he moved there. Yeah.
With the Eagle-Gazette, of course, you're in the sports section. We were kind of laughing about we won't go into all the details, but you had to cover a couple of actual news stories on occasion.
Right. Way back when I first started there, you had to have someone working on Sunday, so I had to rotate. And they're like, oh, nothing will probably happen. Well, I mean, something did happen. My photographer and I, Matt Berry, on a Sunday morning, we got the call, and someone had killed someone in the house, put him in the trunk of a car, and then tried to set the car on fire. So we had to go out to the scene, and I had to interview like the sheriff and stuff like that. Had no clue what I was even doing. I mean, I'm a sports guy. So, and then one other time that sticks out, a boyfriend ran his girlfriend off the road and took her 2 kids, and I had to go to the sheriff's department and try to interview her and ask her questions, and that was very uncomfortable. So I'll just stick to the sports side.
Yeah, obviously with newspaper, like what Dan and I are doing, going from radio to video. Have you seen that big change in the newspaper business to more digital?
1,000%. And especially when social media really became prevalent, you kind of, as a guy like me that's been in it a long time, you kind of had to get with it or you're going to get left behind, like with Twitter and all that stuff. But yeah, everything is digital now. And it's kind of a shame because I miss picking up actual newspaper and reading it and stuff, but it is the way it is, and you just kind of adapt. And so, yeah, I'm just kind of used to it now. But, yes, it's definitely – everything's pretty much digital in the newspaper.
One of the things I've noticed with doing what we do now is not only do viewers get a chance to hear the coach perspective or the player perspective in their own words, but they also get to see them say it.
Right.
And thanks to these things, the old smartphones, it's changed how you can cover things.
Right. And sometimes I wonder. I sometimes wonder. I'm like, I hope people still read my stuff because like guys like you guys, different other outlets. They're like you said, they're interviewing guys on video, and it is kind of neat to see their faces and you actually see their facial expressions when you're interviewing them and what they're saying. Where when you read it in a newspaper, you kind of almost have to imagine. But yeah, that's just progress, and you kind of got to keep up with it, I guess.
And it's almost kind of gut-wrenching a little bit for us we've got to travel back and do whatever we need to do to prepare that material for people to see. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, mom or dad has already shared what happened live right from the gymnasium. And then it's like, oh golly, how do we compete with this?
That's a great point, because I think the same thing. They want us to tweet all this stuff out, as the game's going on, and it's like, well, shoot, by the time somebody sees our stuff, does it even matter now? You know what I mean? They're finding out it's right when it's happening. So,
and I know when we have been covering the tournament games, we started doing some video with the Twitter responses and all, waiting for it to load.
Oh, yeah.
While the play is still going on, you miss things.
Yes.
You've had two great plays that you just
Yes.
That's tough.
Yeah.
With the Eagle-Gazette, is it Lancaster, Fairfield County proper, or do you go out beyond Fairfield County sometimes?
No, and when I first started there, I guess a year or two before that, they had stopped covering like Pickerington schools and the canal. Now they kind of still cover them in the news, but sports-wise, they stopped covering them kind of because Columbus media started picking up on those two. But for me, no, I do not go outside of Fairfield County. So
Beyond, of course, the great season that Fairfield Union boys basketball had, Bern Union girls had a tremendous season. Unfortunately, it ended a little earlier in the tournament than a lot of people projected it would.
yeah, I mean, I thought for sure that they could make a run to the Final Four, and unfortunately, what happened to them is their little point guard Abby Evans was sick and throwing up the whole day that day. Wow. Sophia Klein, who has been a 3-time All-Ohio player, she left her shoes, had to wear somebody else's shoes. First play of the game, got poked in the eye. It took her about a quarter and a half just to kind of get her depth perception right, and then Mount Gilead came out and hit 4 threes, and now all of a sudden they're behind, and when you're not used to being behind, it kind of, as the game goes along. So it was just kind of a perfect storm for them to get beat, and it's too bad. Because boy, they had a great career. Those 3 girls, they went 93 and 11. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's not too many programs that's doing that in a 4-year span. So, but yeah, they've been fun to cover the last 4 years.
What's spring sports look like for Lancaster, Fairfield County?
Man, I tell you, the last 3 or 4 years, especially baseball and softball, has really been strong. Like 3 years ago, we had 6 baseball teams that won district titles. Lancaster baseball has won 4 straight league titles. They had won 3 straight district. Lancaster softball is absolutely loaded. They went to the regional final, and quite frankly, I mean, I hate to say this, but if they don't make the Final Four, I would be shocked this year. They have everybody back, and they're just, the baseball coach, Corey Kahn, does a great job. His culture there is just unbelievable. They're not the most talented, against teams they're facing, but somehow they find ways to win. Matter of fact, I came down here to Chillicothe at the VA Stadium and covered them last year, mid-spring on a Saturday night, and they played Olentangy Liberty, who was ranked number 2 in the state, I think. Lancaster got down 5-0 right off the bat. Their dugout never wavered. Their kids were on the top step, and they came back and beat them. I mean, it was a pretty neat thing. And I loved covering the game down at VA on a Saturday night. So I kind of got off target there. But, yeah, spring sports and the track is very strong. So it's a good time covering sports, in the Lancaster area.
And it's always something when someone local starts a professional career. You got to experience that with the young man from Liberty Union last year.
Absolutely. Jacob Miller, he's probably one of my favorites. I mean, I've never met a kid who has worked. I think people just kind of look at that and they think, but that kid worked. I mean, he would go down to the Cincinnati Reds 2 or 3 times a week, during the winter, and train with a professional trainer. And he's just so humble and so personable. As a matter of fact, I just talked to him last week, just asking him how things going, and he'll text me every once in a while. But yeah, I've never covered anyone that got to that level, and it was nice because that's where when you form personal relationships, that's where it comes in handy, because he kind of let me go along for the ride, the whole way, and got pretty close to his parents, so that was a lot of fun.
He was my Garen Veras. You got to do the same thing with Garen during the early part of his career, which is pretty cool. I want to go back to Bobby Carpenter, if you don't mind. Bobby Carpenter and Andy Katzenmoyer. Those are 2 linebackers that I will never forget watching play against Chillicothe, because they could be 20 yards off the play. They would be back where a safety normally would play and rush up and make the play at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. Their speed was just incredible.
Yeah, Bobby was, man, he's something else. And he's another guy I've kind of gotten to know really well. He's a guy that'll speak his mind. No, it doesn't matter what it's on. But, man, he's loyal to his father. Like, he was loyal to the Lancaster football program. I mean, again, another thing people don't realize, I mean, he gave a lot of his time and money to that program to provide for those kids. And but yeah, and he ended up playing 7 years in the NFL, so it wasn't like he had a shabby career. So, but yeah, he's loyal to Lancaster like no other, and so is Rob, Coach Carpenter. I mean, they love Lancaster, and that's the neat thing I've kind of come to realize since I've been down there is, man, those Lancaster people. I mean, they are loyal. I mean, if they went to Lancaster High School, they're loyal to their sports, and you can't say anything about them. So it's been kind of neat.
I think one of the coolest coaches I ever got to visit with in the Lancaster area was Jack Greathouse. And I remember Jack being at Marietta when Chillicothe was playing. We were playing, I think, the next game, and he was being slaughtered. And I think he was only at Marietta for like 1 year. And just watching him keep the kids' daubers up, as Corky Miller used to say, was interesting. But then when he came to Lancaster, he really put together a nice program.
Yeah, he again, you guys probably saw they just named the court after him, Jack. Like, and man, he was kind of I don't want to say a salesman, but I mean he got everyone involved, and unfortunately the program hasn't been the same since. I know they got to the Final Four a couple years after he retired, but what a great guy, very personable. Always loved talking with Coach Greathouse. And matter of fact, when I interviewed him for that story, he had already went back to South Carolina, and so I interviewed him that Sunday night after he got the court named after him on a Friday. And good Lord, man, I was on the phone for like an hour and a half, and most of it was him talking. So, but it's great to hear stories and how he just lifted that program to a different level.
Yeah. Another iconic figure in the Lancaster community dealing with sports, a guy by the name Al Beaver. You've worked with him quite a bit, I imagine.
Yeah, another guy. I hate to keep saying I'm gotten kind of close to these guys, but yeah, Al. I remember when I first started at Lancaster and would go out to Beavers Field and cover games. He'd be I'm like, I don't know if I like this guy or not, but it just took a little bit to get to know him. And now that I've known him, his wife Phyllis and him are wonderful. And obviously I've covered a lot of baseball games there, and got to talk to him a lot. We're just sitting in the press box. Sometimes it's just us two, and he's a big Dodgers fan. So 2 years ago when I went out to LA and got to go to Dodger Stadium, we obviously talked about that. But yeah, Al has done a lot for Lancaster and given a lot back, and he's a wonderful person. He's another guy I'm really glad I got to know. Yeah.
I think one thing that people don't realize is how many school districts are in Fairfield County that you have to cover. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're kind of spoiled like that here in Ross County because there are 5-6 different school districts, and you were raised in Fayette County, just a couple of schools. Yeah. I was in Pickaway County with 4 schools, but how many are in Fairfield County?
Yeah, I want to say 9. I hope I don't get that right, but I'm pretty sure I cover 9. So actually, there would be, if you add Pickerington and Canal, I guess there would be 11. I may be saying too many, but
they're right on the kind of like Greenfield is, in that multi-border area.
Yeah, same thing with Millersport. They're kind of on the line, but I technically cover 9 schools. Like if they would all call in their games, like on a game, that I would have to have nine different roundup stories. So, and when you're only by yourself, because when I first started at Lancaster, there was 2 sports writers, and there used to be 3. It makes it really tough because you're trying to cover everybody, and you still got to focus on Lancaster sports. And then if a team makes a run in the tournament, then you kind of jump on them. But I try to cover everybody at least once, you know what I mean? And then, again, I still have to kind of focus on Lancaster more than anyone. But anyway, you try to do the best you can, and that's all you can do. So.
Yeah. Anything that we have missed? Anything going on at the Eagle-Gazette that would be interesting for our viewers to know about? Any promotions coming up? Nothing like that?
Yeah, no, I don't think so, man. I just kind of stick with my sports thing. And, obviously the Lancaster Festival is a wonderful thing in the summer that people just in Lancaster and Fairfield County just back that 100%. And it's a great setting out there. I always look forward to going to that. And the fair, obviously the Fairfield County Fair is another big thing. Those are a ways off, but man, as you guys know, when you're in the sports field, it's just boom, boom, boom. It goes from season to season, and you don't have a lot of time off in the summer now.
And it's interrupted by the county fair.
Right.
That's been one of the most difficult. When I first started working with Ron Hinton, he was surprised because the Ross County Fair is before football starts, and he doesn't have that interruption in the middle of the season.
Yep. And if you talk to any of those football coaches, they all hate it because they have to let their kids go. Some of them are showing and it's not a good week for high school football coaches. I know that for a fact. I've talked to enough of them, but it's only once a year, so.
And they're just kids.
Exactly.
And you only live once, dog.
Exactly.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Well, Tom, thank you for making the drive down. We appreciate that. And always good to catch up and just talk old war stories, as it were, in the business of covering sports.
Absolutely.
Mike and I will be back with our regular program coming your way here shortly, about 11 o'clock. So until then, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for watching Litter Media Live.